I just got to the point where I was so tired of feeling anxiety around who I was, because I knew ultimately that was my decision. And I also understood that if I was the most incredible man, it's so easy to think about Jesus. Like, Jesus was this incredible, perfect man, but still he was rejected by so many people. And when I think about me becoming the best version of myself, even as good as I possibly could show up, there's going to be somebody who has a problem with me and who's going to reject me.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're going to do a great job. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where we are on a mission to embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I first want to encourage you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this episode with somebody else you know can get value from it as well. That's how we can continue to keep providing this value to you. And to the men that are listening or watching, I encourage you to check out the Noble Knights Men's Community, where you can find the mentorship, the accountability, and the resources you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to elevate their capacity for life. And I'm excited to get some wind in our sails today from my guest, who is a former Amazon engineer, D1 athlete, and founder of Move.D, a coaching company empowering Christian men to reclaim their faith, focus, and masculine identity. It is my pleasure to have Jack Landry, newly minted with the hardware on the finger. Hey, man. What's up, man?
Good. What's going on, man? I appreciate you just so much, first and foremost, for having me on, and everything that you're doing with the platform, with the Modern Man, with the Noble Knights, just stepping out, having a voice, especially for men who are trying to do things different than people show us we should do with culture and should do with society, just setting a new standard, calling men up to raise the bar for themselves, but also for each other. So I appreciate that. And just like you said, you see a good thing, you got to share that good thing. So first thing I'm going to do, and I would encourage all your followers after the episode to do the same. If they like it, go drop a review. I'm going to do mine on Apple Podcasts for the Modern Man Podcast. Make sure that gets out to as many people as possible. So yeah, man, appreciate you so much. I'm excited to get into it.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate the gesture too. It means the world. And I'm sure you know how important those ratings are for folks who create this content. So thank you. And I also want to get out of the way so you and the audience can get acquainted. I give the titles, I give the highlights, really what people can find on Google, but that doesn't really give the insights into the identity of the man, the story of the man, or even how the man identifies themselves when I do the intro. So I like to step aside and just throw that question out there: is if you were to walk into a room where nobody knows you or have met you before, how do you introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I kind of like to frame my story in the context of guys I feel like I'm best positioned to serve. So typically, a guy who is doing pretty good in life, right? You look at the paycheck, he's making good money, physique is pretty solid, maybe he has a girlfriend or a wife. He's got some type of relationship with God, but deep down, he's got that feeling that there's so much more potential on the table. And whether it's he's just lacking motivation, the discipline isn't there, he doesn't have a clear vision on where he's heading next, or he just feels distance from God, that's the guy I'm best positioned to serve. And I share that because I was that guy. And I had things pretty good growing up. I grew up in a middle-class white American family, went to private school my whole life, was the oldest of 6 kids, went to college, studied computer science, actually, walked on and played Division I football at Elon University down in North Carolina. And yeah, I had good parents they taught me the value of hard work, and they taught me the value of you set your mind to something, you put in the work, you show up, you're typically going to get the output that you're looking for. So that became manifest kind of just from an academic perspective. Everybody in my family was always straight A students from, kindergarten, and that resonated all the way through the end of college. And it kind of translated into my corporate world as well. When I started working as a software engineer, was working for a company known as Fidelity Investments for a couple of years. And that's where I was just looking at my life, and I was kind of in that position that I just described to you, where I was like, things are pretty good. But if I'm going to be honest with myself, I'm at like 75% of my capacity. And I was making solid money, at least felt solid money for me at the time. I was making $75,000 or so. I had a decent physique, had some friendships, went out on the weekend, partied, and that was kind of my life, that cycle. And I was just looking at it, and I was looking at my role models and my mentors. And I was always a diehard sports fan. I grew up in Boston, so was blessed with all the local teams, Patriots especially, with football being my favorite. And I was just looking at, stud athletes. I was looking at some of the best entrepreneurs, guys. I was listening to their podcasts. One of the big ones back then was Ed Milet. I would listen to Lewis Howes on the School of Greatness. And I was just looking at their lifestyle and their habits. And I was like, if I want to live a life like these or aspire to, walk in a similar path as these guys, I should probably have the same habits, routines, and consistency as them. And I knew those guys, not that I wanted to live their life, but I wanted to be at my max capacity because I knew they were. And when I looked at my life, it was like me just showing up and clocking in at the 9 to 5 wasn't going to make me the best entrepreneur or businessman or most successful man in my career I could possibly be. Me going out and drinking and smoking on the weekends, that wasn't going to get me to a place where my physique was absolutely dialed. My mindset was sharp. I was aware of my emotions. Me casually dating, engaging in chasing hookups, just a quick fix, like that wasn't going to put me in a place where a day would come, I was prepared to be an incredible man for an incredible wife. So it was kind of at that point, that was right before I went to Amazon, where I started making these small shifts in my day-to-day habits, the way I was showing up. I started being intentional, like you said at the beginning of the show, with the vision for the man I wanted to become and the life I wanted to live. And that started with getting crystal clear on what that vision looked like, and then figuring out what do I need to do each day to show up as that man. So anyways, fast forward to today, I went and worked for Amazon for a couple of years doing consulting, software engineering in the machine learning space, started my own consulting firm a couple of years later, also in the data analytics space. That was kind of my first step into being an entrepreneur, being self-employed. Did that for a year and a half. And then kind of everything I just described, I was like, there's such a need for men who are ambitious in their career because it is difficult, right? You're showing up, you're grinding, you do want to produce, you want to put money on the table for yourself, for your wife, for your family. And so a lot of the other things, they go by the wayside, they're ignored. And I started focusing on those. So I wanted to figure out a way how I could help men experience the same transformation as me. And that's when I got into coaching in the summer of 2023. It started as just fitness and nutrition. During that whole period, I had a pretty intense walk with God. It was more of a gradual process that got deeper and deeper and deeper, as I let go of the world more and more. And yeah, it's since transitioned to really helping men step into their God-given potential in every single area, prepare for that future wife, or continue to become the man for their current partner already. And that's where we are today. That's what I do full time, helping men step into their full potential. So yeah, super excited about it. Really just powerful work, and something special about a guy who knows he has the capacity to change and he has the capacity for more. He's willing to accept that and acknowledge that within himself, because once you do that, like, it opens up so many doors for the actual growth.
Yeah. And you step into that fire. And I say fire with intention because there is growing pains in the flames. That is that growth that you step into, becoming that new man, becoming that new version of yourself, letting the old self die in order to become that new man. And I use that terminology because what I noticed with your story, Doug, you went D1 athlete, straight A student, Amazon engineer. High performance is in your history. There's evidence of high performance throughout those different roles. And for a lot of folks, and especially men who are listening and watching, we tend to identify with these roles. We identify as the D1 athlete wanting to go pro. We identify as the software engineer who is now holding on to this baby. And the way they do it has to be how it's done. How have you transitioned, or how have you locked into a consistent identity through the changing titles over the years?
yeah, a lot of the problem with titles is titles are something that are imposed on us, and because they're put on us, our sense of worth almost comes from the title that we carry. So, like we're a senior VP or something like that, or we work so hard to become that Division I athlete. When we step away and we no longer have that title, it's almost like we're losing our entire identity. And that is something that, once again, like it's a societal thing, it's a cultural thing. All of these titles, they just are supposed to like define what you do, but what they really do is put you in a box. So this kind of brings me back to like my journey of finding my authenticity. When I was first in the corporate world, I was super insecure in just who I was. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and I was really afraid of rejection and people's opinions of me. So that would cause me to show up in certain ways. I would dress certain ways. I would speak certain ways. You know, I want people to think I was funny. I didn't want people to reject me for whatever reason. And I just got to the point where I was so tired of feeling anxiety around who I was, because I knew ultimately that was my decision. And I also understood that if I was the most incredible man, it's so easy to think about Jesus. Like Jesus was this incredible, perfect man, but still he was rejected by so many people. And when I think about, you know, me becoming the best version of myself, even as good as I possibly could show up, there's going to be somebody who has a problem with me and who's going to reject me. So there was actually a speaker who came to my work. It was a woman, and her name is Rita Baton. She wrote this book called The Authenticity Principle, super powerful. And she just talked about like you being authentic starts with you defining who you want to be. And even back then, like I was a man, right? I grew up in like this classic masculinity where like men can't cry. And that wasn't what my parents necessarily taught me, but like that was just the vibe around manhood when I was growing up. And it was like a guy having long hair like I do now. Back then, when I was in like high school or coming into college, I would have never done it because I would have been like, this isn't manly. And so I just had to sit down and figure out like, who do I want to show up every single day? What do I enjoy about myself? What do I enjoy doing in life? And then how does that, you know, come into expression in my work, in my day-to-day habits, in my routine, and like being aligned with that every single day. And then also there's the faith side of it, whereas like it's hard sometimes if you haven't been pursuing God, because it seems like this just kind of fairy tale feel good message, but like who does God actually say you to be? And honest, you're supposed to be. And honestly, like my image, if I'm good with God, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. So really just trying to stay aligned. If I'm pursuing the Lord and he's speaking to me, and that just looks like, you know, me staying connected with him through prayer, bringing everything I'm doing in my life to him, making sure, you know, I'm moving in a godly way, then I have the confidence in myself and how I'm showing up in my own authenticity. So yeah, it's just like, who am I supposed to be today and who do I want to be? And if I'm showing up truly as that person, then the confidence comes from there.
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man Podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals. Check out themodernmanpodcast.com. Yeah, no, that's man, that's amazing, because you have that groundedness and that consistency through the different titles that can be given to you. And to speak on being the rebel, I went through the book of Proverbs with my buddy, and we were going through a 90-day Bible reading challenge where it's going through Luke and Matthew. And as I'm learning more about Jesus, not only was Jesus rejected, Jesus was a rebel. He instigated that stuff. Oh, yeah. Like, oh my God, like, like not only did Jesus go against the grain, he fanned the flames against the grain.
Yeah.
And I was like, my man. But which is why we find that reality in ourselves. Oftentimes when we start tapping into our true selves, we have that headwind and that inertia of change into becoming who we are from those who are resisting the change that we're providing. Speaking of that resisting, because following some of the OGs, Lewis Howes, Ed Milet, School of Greatness, and seeing what they do, I could write down the list of, okay, do this habit, do that. And for a lot of folks, that excitement and that initial spark of inspiration is enough for them to come up with a pretty good list and even get a little bit of success early on. But there's also another list that a lot of us avoid, is the, well, don't do this, the stop doing list, the things that we've held on to, which have been more habitual, the vices, if you would, where, well, this is my routine, and I got to go drink with my boys on the weekend, and the pornography and the drug use. These are foundational and habitual and not as easy to let go. I would love for you to speak on that transition a bit for any of the guys who are listening who have a great list of things they should start doing, but they haven't been able to fully tackle, because they know the list. Let's be honest. Like, the list of what you shouldn't be doing, but they haven't been able to tackle that yet. That's still like a few stacks under, because they think they can white knuckle it through. Talk about your experience around that and how you help guys drop those vices.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Vices is huge. And it's one of those things we like to justify when we're in the moment, that it's not actually having as big of an impact as it is. And I think the first step with any type of change, especially with dropping something negative, is the acceptance and the acknowledgement that this is holding me back from a better place. And you need to be super realistic and say, okay, if I removed this thing, how much better could my life be? And that's that visualization piece. Like, can you build a belief that without this, there's actually something better? And that belief should hopefully lead to an initial spark, an initial motivation to get to that better place. Or sometimes you have a desire for that better place. Like, you may not necessarily believe that it's true, but you have a desire to get there. And it's either that belief that there is a better place or have a desire to get there. That has to be the spark. It has to be the motivation. And then it's that consistency of, like you said, I got to capitalize on the motivation, on the spark, because if I don't, then I'm right back in that same cycle. And I'm discouraged because I thought about the change. I was excited about what life could be if I did make that change, but I didn't capitalize on it. I didn't take action. And so now I'm right back in that same place, and I'm even less motivated to take action. So when that spark does come, you really have to take action and do it consistently. I talk about taking action consistently. That's going to get you to the place where you build the discipline. The discipline is just a muscle. And once that's been built, that's where you arrive at that new destination. That thing you believed was better, that you desired, you finally experience it. And now that desire is so strong because I have felt it. Like, I've stepped into it, and it's like, wow, this life of sobriety, or this life where I'm not craving variety from pornography and going home and being a slave to scrolling on my phone, is so much better. But you have to get there to truly experience and build that desire. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it was a similar process. The biggest vice I ever fought was pornography. I watched it for the first time as a young kid. I was probably like 12 years old. And that's the problem with our society, is guys get exposed to something like porn or even drugs and alcohol at such a young age. We're developing, and it just seems like a fun thing. But there's so much change going on, especially from a hormonal perspective, particularly with the pornography, that it's like you basically become a dope fiend at an early age, and then all these years go by, and next thing you know, you're looking back and you're like, damn, what did I just condition myself to? And I conditioned myself over so many years. And if you get real with it, it's like that conditioning that you went through over so many years has to be deconditioned and unwired over almost a similar time period. So yeah, it's realizing that, and realizing it's going to take the hard work, and being intentional about accepting this is the negative impact that this vice is having on me. Life would be like this. It would be that much better if I changed it. And then figuring out different ways to show up with consistency, to build the discipline, to step away from it. And typically that looks like replacing that bad thing with a good thing, because you trying to fight the battle of the mind or just go cold turkey. It works for some guys who are super disciplined, but for the most part, just trying to decide not to do it isn't enough because you've been doing it for too long. So you have to have that substitution with a better habit.
How do you connect with the guy who looks at the work ahead of them and they think it's just too much? They look at, because we when we recognize the reality or the level of conditioning that we've actually done, the work to undo that could be daunting. What do you say to the guy who's just like, man, is it even worth it? Or they don't even know if they can lift that burden because they're so demoralized and exhausted in their addiction or in the pit that they're in. They don't even know if they have what it takes to come out of that. How do you connect and reach them in that storm?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing you can do if you feel like you're so stuck with a vice and you're so addicted to something that the journey to get to freedom is going to take too long or it's going to be too much of a battle, you have to just make a decision first and foremost to help yourself. That starts with taking a position of humility. And that's one of the things that I've seen hold back men, and it held back myself, which was, especially because I grew up, I had that mindset, like I put in a certain amount of effort, I get an output. So I was always like, I just need to show up, learn more, or put in more effort, and I'm going to get to where I want to be. But that was holding me back with so much growth. That brings me back to like what you're doing with the Modern Man podcast, just creating that community. I had to humble myself and be like, there's so much, there's power in community, there's power in numbers. And I'm going to look to a guy who has already beat this, who's already doing it. And, look for them to at least give me some type of accountability, guidance, whatever that may be. And I do think it's important to set that big goal. Like, for example, I don't want to ever watch porn again. And that may be the very daunting vision, the very daunting goal where you're so overwhelmed. But what that's going to give you the ability to do is, okay, this is the long-term goal. Now, it may seem daunting, but let me make it a little bit easier for myself. Let me just break it down to like, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Like right now, what's the most important next step I can take to start to move in that direction? And let me just compartmentalize it, break it down to daily steps and break it down to daily wins. Like, how can I win even in this hour? Maybe even in this hour, that's me just saying, I'm going to get off Instagram because that's a trigger for me. So yeah, making it more attainable for you to build momentum, because as those small wins stack, you tell yourself you're going to do something and you do it, that confidence grows and that looming goal seems less looming because you're starting to take and conquer the intermediate steps to get there.
Yeah. Taking on the steps, taking on the steps, not the stairs, right? The next step in front of you. You don't have to look at how many steps you have left or how many stairs you've climbed. It's just that next step over and over again will get you to the top of the staircase eventually. It's inevitable.
Yeah. Right. I feel that way. I'm looking at it right now. I have a stack of mail sitting on my desk, and that's one of those things that I always put off. Like I call it low producers, just those things that take like 5 to 30 minutes. And I'll sit there and I'm like, I really don't want to go through this mail. It's going to take me so long. And I create this big daunting vision of what it could be. But really, like, I open that first envelope, it takes me 2 minutes to get through. I do another one, and the next thing you know, like, the momentum is built, and I'm done in 30 minutes. And this thing that I created, this into a big daunting thing, it's done. So yeah, it's just taking that first step, breaking it down to the small wins.
Yeah, I always say, the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door. Once that, it's off. I'm going off my notes, bro. I'm going to freestyle a little bit with you for a second.
Sure.
Who was Jack before getting married, and Jack is the married man I'm looking at today?
Yeah. Well, we're about like a week and a half in right now. So, geez, not a lot has changed in the past week. It's past week has been nice though, man. It's just been like a peace, a calmness. You probably know, I don't know what you did like for a wedding, if you did a big thing. We honestly wanted to just elope and do our thing, but we felt like the wedding was supposed to be a little bit of a testimony just for the people in our life. So it ended up being still like 60 people. We tried to keep it small, but it was just a lot going into it. My quality time with my now wife heading into the wedding definitely was not as much as I would have liked it to be. We still tried to be as intentional as possible, but just the logistics of it was really tough. So having that quality time coming out of it is special. And yeah, I mean, me before I had a wife, I think me before I met my wife is the most important guy to go back to.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's a follow-up question, but you can jump there right now if you want.
yeah, I mean, before I met my wife, my focus, I wanted a relationship so bad because I had a sense of loneliness that was coming from my lack of purpose. So I was trying to fill this void because I wasn't fulfilled in my own day to day life with another person, with their companionship, that fun, excitement, that joy of spending time with somebody. And I realized that I had to get to a place where, as a man, I was completely okay and fulfilled and content in life with my own life and what I had to do and how I had to show up every single day. Because otherwise, I was just going to be looking for something else, whether that was a vice, porn, drugs, alcohol, a woman to fill that space. So I had to surrender what had become an idol, which was the desire for a relationship. And once I started doing that, that's where my walk with God got deeper. I started pursuing Him more. And that gave me clarity on, like, this is how I need to show up every single day as the best version of myself. That gave me clarity on what I needed to be doing with my work and my career. And I just got into that flow state where, like, I was growing and maturing every single day as a man, as I still tried to do today. And there was so much fulfillment and purpose in that self-growth process, that I was fully content. And it was only at that time when a woman came into my life where I was like, this is the one, and I was prepared for her. But it was because I stopped looking for her and I just started looking within myself and figuring out, how can I do that work? So that's just a tidbit of, like, how I was before. And I just think there's a higher call now that I'm married. I'm thinking about, like, we're traveling in a couple weeks. We'll be in Hawaii for like 3 weeks, and then we're going to be in Bali, Southeast Asia for, honestly, man, it might end up being like a year, just because I'm thinking, like, if I spend a year out there, what I could do with my business would be incredible. And I've set a good foundation, but it's not like just smooth rolling where I want it to be. And so I have this vision, and I've always had this vision of, like, how is what I'm doing right now preparing the life for my future family? And that's just intensified to another level, like, now that we're married, because I'm like, all right, we want to have kids someday. We're going to try to hold off as long as we can. Send up some prayers for that, but we're going to try to hold off as long as we can. But with that, it brings a little bit of a, not a heavy, burdensome urgency, but an urgency to be like, all right, I can't just go through my day-to-day life like operating like I'm on the clock, clocking in and clocking out. I have to have that longer term vision. And so with that, I'm just thinking, like, how do I set up our life in a way that, when that first kid comes, no matter what happens, we're going to be good. But how do I set it up in a way that, like, we can be focusing on the family as much as possible? And I'm not like I'm not like still in the valley or in these tough seasons with my business. So, yeah, it's just like a little bit of a mindset perspective shift, and it calls you to a little bit of a higher maturity.
Yeah. No, it's recognizing, and I told my wife this when I got married. It was really easy for me to make bets when I was the only one that had to deal with the repercussions. I can go for broke over and over again, but now I have to, like, consider I'm not the only one that has to deal with the L's now. So my risk tolerance has shifted a little bit, but I don't get me wrong. I'm always going to be Teddy, but
Yeah.
there's some adjustments in the risk tolerance, because I can't just go for broke like I used to,
Mm.
because there's repercussions that I would be willing to deal with as a man that I wouldn't want my family to deal with. And like I said, I'm off notes, man. And it just hit me with that. You mentioned getting your business into a place, and what I could say is getting married, having my daughter now, being able to have the parental leave and take time off to be with my daughter, and even have my days with my daughter. My job does come with its constraints on a time basis, but it's in a way that I only miss like a morning nap. So I really get as much time with my daughter as I want. And that was intentional. how have you been looking at your business differently now with the introduction of the family and the vision, right? I imagine your business plan a year and a half ago could look different now in terms of you're considering how your business operates. How has that changed?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good because that's something I even had to realize. I actually realized it for the first time in a relationship, but I was in a relationship. My sole focus was my business, and I would pour all my time and energy into it. And then my girlfriend at the time, I would barely create any time to spend quality time with her or to do social activities with just people and friends in our life. And we sat down, we had a conversation one night, and it was like, if you don't change the way you're operating with your business, whoever the woman is who's meant for you, you're never going to be able to support her in the capacity she needs, even if she's like the least needy woman. Like every woman, as they deserve, needs and deserves quality time. You need to nurture a relationship to have a relationship. So, um, that actually translated to like me in my singleness, trying to create time to basically do nothing. So what I would do is I would work during the day. I would have a certain time that I needed to shut off, say like 6 or 7 o'clock. And then it was almost kind of enjoyable for me because I was like, all right, I'm going to start forcing myself to watch a TV show every single night just to sit and do nothing because I was never very good at that. So I started like watching a TV show. That was my 1 hour of dedicated time. And honestly, it helped because I used to be the type of guy who would wake up, go to work, grind literally till the time I got right into bed. Whether I was at the gym or eating meals or prepping or on the computer, it was always something. And yeah, so in my singleness, figuring out how do I prepare with my priorities also to make a woman my top priority after God, of course. So that was the first thing I had to do. And then in this season, I honestly feel like it's time to grind because I have no kids right now. So as soon as the first kid comes, I know it's going to shift things dramatically. And I will always be working on the business, but right now I'm in a phase where I'm really like working in the business. And those periods of sacrifice are just going to be intentional and important right now. And we're so blessed. We're going to be in Southeast Asia. Like how much better could it be? But even then, like there's a chance we don't travel home for holidays and we stay in the same place for a while. Like we're away from family and friends and we're blessed to do it from a gorgeous place, but like that is a sacrifice. But the momentum that can be built, I keep telling myself like I need to get back to at a minimum because with all the life lately, I haven't been there like a 9 to 5 schedule at a minimum. Because there's so much flexibility with entrepreneurship, and I work my ass off. But what I could do, like if I just think about the days I used to go into the office, like I'd get there for 8 o'clock and I'd be there till 5 o'clock. Like if I was in a single confined space, just working for that amount of time every single day, week after week, I haven't had the chance to be in that flow state in a long time. So yeah, it's just, I'm thinking about that and just thinking like this needs to be done. And, we're going to be in a dope place like Bali. I could be running around, having a good time at the beach, chilling, enjoying my wife, which I will be, but it's being more intentional, right? We're newly married. We want to nurture that relationship. So it's like, okay, this is when we're both going to work. And then we're going to set aside time to spend together, whether that's a date night, whether that's like an hour every single evening, just sitting and chatting. Sometimes people will make it seem like intentionally like scheduling in your wife or your husband is like a bad thing, but really it just shows like you care about this. It's a priority, it's a responsibility, and it just shows intention. So yeah, just really trying to move with more intention and then have the vision of like where do I want to be during certain periods. And I want to be more so where like I'm working on the business, I'm not creating all the content. Other parts are automated and when like kids and family come. So yeah, just having that vision for where you want it to be during certain periods of life and making sure you're putting in the work now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And having that perspective of knowing this time is an opportunity to invest, right? And we had a guest a few weeks ago. I love the way he said, he's like, I've never spent time on anything. I only invest my time. And you're looking at a season of of being in a part of the world that will provide a lot of inspiration, a lot of visual beauty, and probably a lot of sparks of inspiration to your nervous system. And that's going to have a great foundation and potency for creation. And getting into that deep work, my listeners know, go ahead, set the timer,
Yeah.
that timer and let it go, and
Oh,
and cut out the distractions and zone in, and just watch out what comes about in the 1 hour, 2 hours, however long of a deep work session that you're able to set up lasts. Just be careful of what comes out of that, right? Because
yeah.
it's compiling what's happening underneath, leading into that inspiration, getting into a flow state so you could really bring down the defense mechanisms, which holds back that creativity, and have the diarrhea of the mouth, diarrhea of the pen, and let it out. And you'd be amazed at what comes out. And I want to allude that into a scientific study and some of the work that you do, where it was research published in the Psychology of Religion and Spirituality. And it shows that spiritual practice enhances self-discipline and well-being. And it supports your integration of your daily rituals, your faith-based practices, and your performance. And whether it's growing your social media to an influence of over 70,000 followers, or growing your coaching business in its first year and beyond to 6 figures and more, some folks might look at rapid growth, or some folks might look at a history of success and think to themselves, oh, well, that's not me. I don't have all those successes in my past. When it comes to your practice in faith and your walk with God, how have you credited that path to the success that you experienced for some who might not be a fan of their timeline or how things have shaped up?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. And just a quick note on the deep work. There's literally nothing I've experienced that's more powerful than being in like that flow of serious deep work. That's why I'm pumped to get out to Bali, because the last time I was in like crazy deep work flow was in 2021. In 2020, I had just moved out to San Diego, just started with Amazon, and brand new culture, brand new environment, new nobody, new job. And I remember that's when I got into the personal development as well. I was like crushing all these books. I'd wake up 5 a.m. religiously every single day, have my little routine, and I wouldn't look at my phone till 11 a.m. I would get into work for like 3-4 hours and before that. And it's just like what you can do in that silo. And it's so hard in today's culture, but what you can do in like that funnel is ridiculous. And yeah, just like, it's like this natural high on life that I've never experienced besides like being overwhelmed by like the power of the Holy Spirit. It's like nothing else I've ever experienced besides like being in that deep flow. So yeah, just a side note, like if you guys haven't been in flow state before or done deep work, do it. It's ridiculous. The change it can bring into your life.
Yeah.
So
no, it's fantastic.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like to say personal development, all these ideas and concepts of consistency and discipline and denying yourself of what you want to do now for later gratification, it's all biblical. And so if you let the word of God shape your character and your habits, you start to become the person who is consistent, is disciplined, and is able to show up and do what's required now to move towards that vision. But you talked a lot about like the timeline thing, and that is really where like my relationship with God has matured me in my visualization and my understanding and my patience with timelines, because I had gotten to a point where, like I said, especially starting with the grades, I grind hard, I put in a certain amount of effort, and I get an output. I get the A's. I grind hard, I work out during the summers, I walk on the football team, I go through rehab, I get on the field at some point. But when I got into entrepreneurship, especially, and then my relationship with God, it's like my timelines are not necessarily God's timelines. And you mentioned it in the beginning, like being in that fire. Hermosi actually said something where he's like, if your business isn't growing, it's because you need to grow. And when the business is growing, it's because you've done the growth to get it to that point. And that same concept applies with God. Like God's timing, he says it himself, is always perfect. And there's a time and reason for it. So if you can believe that and you start to believe these things that God says are actually true when you start to apply them to your life. Otherwise, it sounds just like some feel-good fairy tale motivational quote. So the only way to figure out like if this is actually true is to apply it to your life. And when you apply it to your life, you start to see the truth in it. But yeah, God says his timing is perfect. So if you can get to a place where you truly believe that and your timeline isn't working out in the perspective in the way that you like it to, like mine was with my desire for a wife, it's like, all right, God's clearly doing something right now. He has me in the fire, in the furnace for a reason. And there's this molding, transformation, growth that has to happen for me to get from where I want to be to that next level, to that breakthrough that I'm looking for. And really what that helps you do is it helps you shift from the destination to the process. And you're continually asking yourself, like, how do I have to change what needs to develop in me so that I can get to that place? And it helps you kind of step away from like the pressure of having something happen in a specific timeline.
I love that. Coming up towards the end of our time together, what is a message you hope all men can hear and take to heart? If this microphone is connecting you to all faith-based men right now, what is the message you hope they could hear and take to heart?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, of everything we've talked about, like the most radical thing that's changed my life is truly building a relationship with God. I grew up in Catholic church. So really what I learned from that is I learned like the rules of religion. I don't identify with Catholicism anymore. I'm just a Christian. But what changed for me is like when I started pursuing a relationship, and what that looked like was me developing a relationship through spoken prayer, me just basically sharing my heart from a place of humility and authenticity with God. But then also getting to a place where like I could actually quiet my mind. I could step outside of my thoughts. I could sit in a meditative state and just listen. And that doesn't mean God's going to speak verbally into my life, but God's spirit flows through us. And it's like that conscience, that gut feeling, which is God's spirit directing you. But if you're just always stuck in your head and the craziness of your thoughts, you're never going to be able to get to that place of clarity. So that's why the mental health side of things is so important. So if you can pursue and truly build a relationship with God, that will radically change your entire life. And what that looks like is looking at the life of Jesus and figuring out, how do I set this man as my role model, and then let him continuously transform me from the inside out, change my character, and pursue God in that process and relationship. And that's just going to give you vision, direction, and clarity on exactly who you're supposed to be and what to do with every single area of your life. So that's the first thing. And the second thing would just be like, there's so much power in you being willing to say, this is where I'm at right now. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to acknowledge and excuse me. I'm going to acknowledge and accept my weaknesses. What I'm doing there is I'm moving with a sense of humility, because I'm stepping outside of my pride and my ego. As men, we want to feel like we have it all together. We got this. We can do it ourselves, right? We don't need help. But all that's doing is holding you back. So being super realistic about where you are now, humbling yourself, and then being willing to get involved in community, to take risks, to feel stupid, to look silly. Every single time you fail, every single time you step into that growth or that discomfort, there's the opportunity to grow. Otherwise, if you don't step into those things, you stay exactly where you are. The only way to growth is through that discomfort, the unknown, the failure. So yeah, having the humility to be like, I don't have it all in myself, but there's somebody else who can help me get there. That's just going to help you develop so much more and become who you truly want to be.
I'm looking on the ground, man. You dropped the microphone somewhere. I'm just
Oh, now.
Oh man, I'm gonna need folks to rewind that and play that back. Really quick before we wrap it up. Speak about your coaching. Moved. I know I said move.d for folks who are searching it, but talk about more about Moved.
For sure. Yeah. So really, what I like to do with Moved is, once again, it's super personalized. I work with guys one-on-one. Our whole goal is to get you to step into your God-given potential in every single area. So let's get you absolutely dialed physically, mentally, become aware of your emotions. Let's get your schedule and your routine to a place where we know what your priorities are, and that's going to be driven by us getting clear on your vision. And now that we know your vision, we know your priorities, and let's make sure those priorities are taken care of every single day. So we'll get your schedule and habits there. We'll get you in the best shape of your life, get you eating good, feeling good, get that confidence in a good place. You feel good, you look good. And yeah, really also just figuring out ways for you to drop the things that are holding you back, the vices, the drinking, the smoking, the porn, those things that we don't want to talk about. We want to ignore and act like they're not a big deal, but realistically, they're holding you back from who you could be. And you know that, and you have more potential. So let's figure out a way for you to step into it, right? It just starts with creating the vision and then coming up with the steps to move in that direction. It's simple, a simple process. We just need to be intentional about where you actually want to be. So that's what I try to do with guys, have them come in. We do that. We come up with a blueprint to get them there. Everything starts with their morning. So I like to build out what's called a morning momentum blueprint. Like, let's prime you to be at your best physically, mentally, and spiritually within your career every single day. Let's set the standard for that. And even just like for everybody listening, rather, I'd love to just make that available as an opportunity if they do want to do that with me. I'll talk about how they can reach out. But yeah, if you guys want to put together like that morning momentum blueprint just to start your day with more intention, more clarity, more focus, start heading in the direction you actually want, that's something I'd love to do with you. Something I typically only hold for my one-on-one clients as well is we'll kind of do like what I call a move different strategy session, where you come in, we look at your life right now. Where do you want to be in, say, 6, 12 months? Let's get crystal clear on those goals. Let's identify all those obstacles that are holding you back from there. And then let's come up with an action plan to actually get you to that place. So that's something I'd love to open up as well. If the guys want to go through that morning momentum blueprint with me, I can send that over to them, or I'm happy to bring them on for a move different strategy session. Basically, look at that life. Where do we want to be? Let's figure out a game plan to get there. And yeah, I'll drop how they can do that if that's cool with you.
Yeah, no, please. I would love for the audience to because man, you and I have a lot of similarities and synergies in what we do. But I always say this: the mission of Modern Man is connecting men in pursuit of their potential. And if someone's been rocking with me for 5 years and they hear your message and they resonate with it, and today they feel that inspiration to take action, that's mission complete on my end. Go ahead, drop the links. I'd love for the audience to get in contact with you, work with you, and find out more of what you're doing. What are some of the best resources?
Yeah, so all those things I typically do with my one-on-one clients is super personalized. The morning momentum blueprint, us doing the move different strategy session. Anybody who wants to do that with me, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. My Instagram is Jack P. Landry. You can find me there. Just search Jack Landry. You should find me. You can message me the word TED or Modern Man, just so I know where you're coming from. Either one works. But yeah, we can go through that morning momentum blueprint together, can get you dialed there. We can kind of do that analysis of your life, figure out the steps you need to take to where you want to be. So that's Jack P. Landry on Instagram. Send me over TED or Modern Man. That would be super cool. And yeah, there's also a community side of things where, whether it's with what Ted's doing with the Modern Man or what I'm doing or somebody else, like, comes back to my point at the end, which is get yourself involved in some type of community because, you're not supposed to be doing this alone. There's power in community and numbers. So figure out a way to get involved with some other guys for sure.
Absolutely. Amen to that. To do not be the lone wolf. If you want to go fast, you can go alone. But if you want to go far, let's go together. And I'll have the link in the show notes below for folks to hit that up. I always tell people, tell them Ted sent you. Like, I'll tell people to do that to places I've never been. Like, oh yeah, I heard it's good. Tell them Ted sent you. So by the time I go there, I already had the reciprocity built in the establishment. It's like, oh, you're the dude Ted that's been sending everybody over our way. Last question, Jack, is usually the heaviest, which is why I save it for last. And if it's something we covered or mentioned beforehand, feel free to revisit it. But what is something you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Yeah, I think honestly getting into Miami and seeing like people living there had a big impact on like what I feel I can do with my own life. I remember I had just moved to Miami. I'd been there like 6 months. there was an entrepreneur there who's big in real estate. He was actually, his name is Eric Spofford. He used to be boys with Wes actually, but he used to be like addicted to drugs, was on his last dime, like robbing somebody at gunpoint or knife point for a bag or something. And what that was at like 18, and he ended up getting sober, starting a rehab facility, and then selling that rehab facility for like 15 million or something. And I just remember, I was inspired by his journey of sobriety, and like this dude was like tough. Like, I mean, he came from like the way he grew up, like he grew up a thug. And there's always been something about like even like mobs and stuff. I don't know, like that hard-nosed mentality it's kind of like got me fired up. It's like the dog in you, like the competitive side, something about it, just like the hustle. It just would always get me excited. So I saw this guy and I was inspired by his story, and it was the first time I pulled trigger on like going to an in-person event. I remember I spent $2,500 to go to a mastermind at his mansion in Miami. And I was like, I just want to be around this guy, like listen to how he speaks and listen to the people in the room, see the type of conversations that they're having, like look at the lifestyle that they live, and just open my perspective up to what's possible. And then being in Miami, there's all these young kids who, a lot of it is there's a lot of phony online business as well, but there's also young kids who are like 21 years old, like making 50, 100K a month, like with legitimate businesses. They never went to college. One of my good buddies, he must be like 21 or 22. He does life insurance sales. He absolutely crushes it, and dropped out of college. I don't even think he went, but I always grew up, and I was so blessed to grow up with like, all right, let's go to good schools, let's get good grades, make sure you get that best corporate job. And that was the only thing I knew, which was like living in the system. Yeah. And then when I started to just step into these different circles of dudes living differently, it was like, damn, you can really create like whatever life you want, and you don't have to live by the confines of society and culture. And that's also what helped me step into my masculinity, where I was like, I don't have to be the hard-nosed dude with the buzz cut that I always had, and like, the lineup that I had, like two on the top, faded down on the sides, taper in the back. That was me, and it's a fresh cut. Don't get me wrong. I still keep it faded down to the skin. Like I got to keep that athlete in me. So, yeah. But like, that side of me that was afraid of growing the hair out, because I was like, that's not manly, that I was able to put that away. And the side of me that was like, I can be in touch with my emotions and share that, and like tell my homies I love them, and give them hugs, and like listen and be supportive as a man for a woman, and actually understand my own emotions. Like those things, or the pressure to not be that way, started to fade away as well. And yeah, it just helped me step so much further into like, who do I actually want to be as a man? And like, let me really define this life. And most people don't ever get to that perspective of actually believing it. Like, I'm the author of my own life. Let me write the story. But when you eat, that's why the law of exposure is so powerful. It's like, just go and look how other people are living. And I'm not like a big materialistic guy, but when I see like, walk down the street in Miami and you see like 10 Lambos and it's 5 minutes, it's like, this is so normal here. Like, why can't it be normal for me? So, yeah, just really putting on that creative hat and deciding like, what is the best life I could literally create? Like, I talk about like, you're creating your character in Madden or some video game. Like, that dude's going to be swole. He's going to be like at least 225, six something. And it's like, yeah. You have the ability to do that in this life. So if you can like really put that hat on, figure out what that would look like for you, and then somebody's done it already. So go and figure out like how they got there, and stop listening to like traditional culture. If everybody's doing it, then it's probably not going to get you to where you want to be, to something that's extravagant and extraordinary. And that doesn't mean like a lot of money or this lavish lifestyle. It just means unique and authentic to you. So you should create that life and make sure, you're feeding yourself with people who are living that. Because if you're looking, to like the mainstream traditional culture and systems, you're never going to find it.
Amen. You got to define it for yourself. And I always tell people, God didn't make me over 6 feet, because that would have been like stacking the deck and making me like Michael Vick in '07 Mac.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't sit there. You know what I mean?
Right. What about a disadvantage? Yeah. Would have been too unfair of an advantage.
Oh, exactly. That's why I'm 5'10" and 3/4, which is like 5'11", which is practically 6 feet. But that's why.
Hey, I'm 5'9" and 3/4, or it's 5'10" on every paper I got.
Exactly. Don't worry about it. If they're watching the roster, they're gonna know. They're watch out for me.
Not a little ego left in me.
Former Amazon engineer, D1 athlete, founder of Moved, a coaching company empowering Christian men to reclaim their faith, focus, and masculine identity. Jack, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. This has been insightful and fantastic.
Ted, appreciate you. It's been super pleasure. And once again, just appreciate you stepping out with the authenticity, the boldness to bring this message to guys, because, this is exactly the thing that I just talked about, which is breaking the system, breaking the stereotypes of how we need to be, and speaking on it boldly. So I appreciate you.
No, absolutely, man. And we continue to echo that message forward. I'm going to recap some of the gems you left along the way. I stopped taking notes after a little bit because I was just so enthralled in the conversation, but these are pretty good. And I say that I took that note for a lot of the folks who are listening and watching who have a pretty good life, but something's missing, but you're not tapping your full potential, but you're still leaving some on the table. That but is going to haunt you until you do something about it. Tired of feeling anxiety over who I was? Are you afraid that your real self won't be accepted, and because of that, you're putting all these filters, or you're putting on these different colors to fit in the environment that you're in? Well, even if that disguise get accepted, your true self is not accepted, and it won't fill that void, which is acceptance of what you're trying to look for. Be your true self, and those that aren't for you won't be for you. And here's the added bonus: when you're with God, no one is against you. This is holding you back from a better place. Is there a vice that you're holding on to? Is there a habit or behavior that you're stuck on that no longer serves you? Perhaps it was an agreement you made with yourself to make it through a season which has come to an end, but that behavior has not, and it's no longer pushing you to that next step. Maybe it's time to reassess that and let that behavior go. There's power in community. So many of us, especially as men, try to white knuckle it and do it alone. But community is really what will expose that strength that is within you. It's your ability to work with others that provides the strength. And God's timing is perfect. And I'll tell you what, right now, don't pray for patience, because God certainly will give you an opportunity to be patient. I've made that mistake. And then you can create the life you want. You have the power within you. If you are watching this, if you're listening to this, the power is within your hands and within your words of creating the life that you want. You have to simply go after it. Go reach out and get it, and use the resources that are provided to you in the form of community and coaching, much in the form of what Jack offers. So reach out. And of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this episode with somebody else can get value from it. It's the best compliment that you can give us, and leave us a rating to let us know how we're doing. And as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.